everybody. Let me fix my camera here. This is Debbie, and I'm going to be talking about 2017 to 2020 with Larry's Semantic Dementia. And as I said in the other videos, Larry was diagnosed with Semantic Dementia in 2017, and he was still working, and he continued to work until 2019. But in 2017, he was diagnosed. And then in 2018, we were still living in our home, and I knew at that time that we needed to start downsizing and looking for another place, because I knew that there was going to be a time where I wouldn't be able to make payments, house payments. So we began looking in 2018. Between 2016 and 2018 is when I finished my MBA, so I was doing online classes in my education to get my MBA. And then 28 I graduated, and he was starting to show more symptoms and more signs. And then in 2019, we moved out of our home into a condo, and then let's see, it was 2019, it was early December of 2019, where Larry was working, and he had gone to work one Wednesday morning, and it was kind of dark because he had to be there at 6 a.m., and it was really dark, and it was South Lake, and he was driving, and there was a lot of construction going on, as there always is in Dallas and everywhere, and he didn't recognize the barriers because it wasn't there the day before. So he went through the barriers, the police saw him, they followed him to his work, and he parked, and they told him, to get out, and he said, I've got to go to work, and they said he became combative, and they threw him on the ground. He had some bruises, some scrapes and stuff, and I feel sorry for him. But anyway, they realized there was something not right, so they took him to the ER, the hospital, and so I got a phone call that morning, and it was like, there was such a visceral effect of, like, oh my gosh, what is my greatest fear, right? And so anyway, I drove up to the hospital praying and asking for God's guidance and mercy, and so I got up there at the hospital, and Larry was really excited to see me. It was like nothing happened, and I said, well, hey, you ready to go home? And he said, yeah, let's go, and so it's just amazing that they have no idea. I mean, something can happen so bad and so catastrophic or tragic, and it's like they don't remember it anymore. Anyway, so, but he knew something bad happened. He knew something happened, and he didn't like it. And anyway, so we went up to his job, and he retired. We did early retirement, and they were really nice. And so got all his things, and I knew at that point that I had to sell his car, because you hear all these things about silver alerts on the highways, like be on the lookout for this person who's driving a car and they have dementia. So anyway, the very next day we sold a car to a friend of ours, which was very helpful, I'm telling you. And we moved out of the condo into this apartment that we're in right now. And so that was in December, and in October, just a few months prior, I had already began the paperwork of disability with social work. And I knew it was going to be an issue with his work because his performance was lagging, and so I needed just a few more months, and his job didn't want to do that. So I got an employment attorney. I hired an employment attorney, and she was amazing, and she helped us to keep Larry and his job until December. And then early December, when this happened, I'm like, nobody wins here, so I had to retire. Anyway, so I had to go to a neurologist that the Social Security Administration had to prove that he was disabled and he deserved to have disability, and he was eligible for disability. And we filled out all the paperwork. We did the neurological exam with their neurologist, and they totally disabled him. And I found out that he was approved, and then they were going to start making payments that next July. So here we are, at the end of 2019, we're going into 2020, and in 2020, in May, he started feeling really lightheaded and kind of weird, and he passed out in the bathroom. And I was getting ready for work, and I heard this sound like, glass shattering, and I'm like, well, that's not right. So I go into the bathroom, I see him slumped over the bathtub, and with adrenaline, I picked him up and sat him on the toilet, and he had his head down and he couldn't breathe, and I lifted up his chin, I'm like, breathe, you gotta breathe, and so I mean, this is all adrenaline, and it's like I just do what comes to mind, and I do have my certification with the American Heart Association for basic life support, so I knew what to do if he didn't have breath or didn't have a heartbeat or whatever. So I knew what to do in that situation, and that was to keep calm. And but anyway, I called 911, and he was starting to wake up, and I said, "I'm taking glasses here." Anyway, I called 911, and I can see better with these. But anyway, I called 911, and they said, "Well, do you want us to come out?" And I said, "You know what? He's waking up. Let me go ahead and just take him myself." So because he was able to walk, had he not been able to walk, had he just been, just lying there and not responsive, then yeah, I would have called 911 and had them come out. But anyway, I took him to the hospital, and they checked him over. They checked his lungs. They checked his heart, and the doctor came in and checked him out and said, "Oh, he had pain in his back," and they said, "Oh, well, he probably just has pneumonia," because they saw a spot in the back and on his lung, and so anyway, they let him go. So here he is taking a 5-day worth of antibiotics, and then that very next week, he was right here, and he was walking to the bedroom, but he was kind of shuffling, and all of a sudden he just goes down face first, and I'm like, oh my gosh! And so I get a yoga mat, I roll it up, put it under his head, turn him over, make sure he's okay, and then I go get an ice pack, put it on his head, and he had a black eye, and black, everything was black on one side, and I felt so sorry for him, and anyway, so I just made sure that he was okay. I said, okay, we're going to the hospital again. No, I don't want to go. No, it's not an option. I said, we're going. So anyway, we went back up to the ER, and they said, oh, you can't go back here. And I said, yes, I can. I can't go back here because you cannot communicate with him, and he will not tell you what's going on. I am his POA. I have a medical POA. If anybody has any questions about it, then they can come talk to me. But I am going to be there in the ER with him, and I will be answering your questions. So anyway, they let me back there, and I stayed in there for several hours. And anyway, the PA, the physician's assistant, came in the room, took off his sock, had his socks taken off, and looked at his legs and says, to everyone that was standing there, and said, hey, what do y'all see here? What's the difference between these two legs? Well, that one's really red and swollen. I said, yeah. So what they did is they got the sonographer from another floor, come down and do a sonogram on his leg, and sure enough, he had a really gigantic blood clot, and part of it had broken off. Part of the clot had broken off and had traveled up to his lungs, over his aorta, and almost killed him. And would have that had it gone into the aorta. But anyway, I mean, it's a miracle that he's still alive, because that is a widowmaker. So that was a real scary part. But again, I'm still running on adrenaline. And then he ended up staying there for 5 days in the hospital. I couldn't go see him because of COVID. And then 5 days later, he got out, and I came home, and they put him on Eliquis first, and he broke out in hives. He just hives all over his body, and I said, no, we can't do this one. Let's do a different one. And so they gave him Xarelto, and he takes Xarelto to this day, and so we're very thankful for that. But that was a real scary thing, and so anyway, he was doing well. He takes Dementia as well, and that was pretty much 2020. And I can't stress this enough. It's so important to have your end of life paperwork, because you never know what's going to happen. We're not guaranteed, a second from now, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when our time is up. We just don't know when God says, okay, it's time to go. And so that's why it's important to be prepared. And I am a notary in Texas, so anybody in the Dallas area that needs a notary, you can go to Debbie ddbinotary.com, and I'm happy to help you out. So anyway, with that, I mean, it's been quite an ordeal. It's been quite a journey, but I'm thankful to the Lord that um, we have Him as our guide, as our refuge in times of trouble. Larry and I still read our Bibles to this day. We're in the 8th year of reading our Bible through. I will tell you this about going to the dentist and going to the doctor appointment. It's really important that you, as a caregiver, explain to them a day or two earlier, hey, we're going to go to the doctor on Monday. We're going to go to the doctor on whatever day it is. And so it's not going to be your regular schedule. That way you start preparing them, even though they're not going to remember you preparing, but it prepares you. You know what I'm saying? And it really helps you to say, oh, okay. Anyway, so going to the doctor's office, you have to be in there with them. If they let you, I mean, it's important for you to be in there. Just ask permission. Hey, do you mind if I'm in there with you in case you have questions because you can't answer them. When they go to the bathroom, you really do have to go with them. Stand outside the door and say, hey, you're going to be okay. Go by yourself. Make sure you lock the door because they'll have a tendency to leave the door open or they'll have a tendency to leave the door unlocked, which is not safe. So if they can go by themselves, that's great. Just make sure that they get in there, lock the door, or you're going to stand by and just watch. Okay. Again, with the little piece of paper that I showed you in the other video, when you go out to eat or you go anywhere, show them that piece of paper that says this person has FTLD, Semantic dementia, or whatever dementia, and they may say appropriate things. Thank you for your kindness. Always thank people for their kindness. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I know I've been telling you every video, and I'm going to talk to you about the going out to eat, doctor's visits, and all that. But definitely, this is what I'm telling you is it's important to prepare them a day or two ahead so that they know. Remember, I told you that we're going to go to the doctor's office and we're going to come back later. Okay, and it messes up their schedule a little bit. But if you ever have any questions about that, I'm more than happy to answer any. Just leave a comment because I'm religious about checking messages. And anyway, I wish you the very best in your journey. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking time to take care of yourself. Reading a book, going for a walk, doing some exercises, stretching. Stretching is very important, and you want to make sure that your significant other who has dementia is exercising as well. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye for now.